This video is sponsored by Disney Book Group.
Good morning, everyone. Today I will be sharing with you all of the books that I read in June. And welcome back to my channel. My name is Lexi and I'm so excited that you are here today because I have quite a lot of books to talk to you about that I read in the month of June. But before we go ahead and get into all of the books that I've read, I would like to thank today's sponsor, which is Disney Book Group. And I would like to talk to you a little bit about Cold Hearted by Serena Valentino.
It's a familiar tale, a kind and beautiful young girl reeling from loss, a doting father frantic to bring a mother's love back into his daughter's life, and the selfish, cruel woman who insinuates herself into that family. But who is that evil stepmother, that icy lady of the house? Even the coldest villains are sometimes wives and mothers, women who loved and lost and hoped for something grander in their lives, once upon a dream.
This is Serena Valentino's 8th book in her Villains series, and I am so incredibly excited to actually get started reading this book. I have such a soft spot for anything that involves the Cinderella fairy tale, and I think it's going to be really fun to kind of get to know why the stepmother was so bad. Also, I don't feel like I'm alone when I say that sometimes the villains are the most interesting and fun characters in a story. So I love this concept so much, and I can't wait to read this. This, by the way, is on sale everywhere July 6th. You can purchase this in hardcover format, ebook. You can also get the audiobook, and I will link all of the information about the book down below in the description if you are interested. This is a YA book, and I am very excited to read this. So once again, thank you so much, Disney, for sponsoring this video, and happy reading. And now on to my not my TBR. My wrap up. Okay, so it's actually been such a long time since I've done like a proper wrap up on my channel. In fact, I feel like the last time I did a wrap up was actually last year sometime, maybe. I don't know. But I'm really excited because so many of you guys wanted me to bring them back, and I love talking about all of the books that I've read, so of course I was going to start bringing them back. And I also have my trusty little reading journal. I love this reading journal so much, and I have been keeping track of like all of my thoughts and opinions on all of the books that I've read this month in this journal. Also, isn't it cute? It's like a little dark academia moment here, and we love to see it. I got this from my friend Sabine's Etsy shop. I can link it down below. I'm not fancy with my reading journal. I'll just show you. It's like lined pages, and all I do is jot down my thoughts on the books. I'm not fancy, but the notebook is fancy. I would also like to say that I am not going to be doing a July TBR. You guys already know all of the books that I will be reading in the month of July. I'm basically just picking off books from my summer TBR that I've kind of like put together already, so I will link that up above. And then also I'm trying to get to all of the titles that I didn't get to from my June TBR, as well as catching up yet again on some buddy reads. You guys, it's been a time. Having said that, I've gone ahead and put everything kind of in categories. So the categories that I'm going to be doing are classics, middle grade, YA, and then adult. And then just so that you know, I will be talking about 10 books. I have completed 8, and then 2 I'm still in the middle of, but technically it's still June while I'm filming this. I have about 3 more days of June, I think. So I think I'm actually going to be finishing these books, but if not, you will see them in my July wrap up. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the classic section. So for classics, I have 2 here. The first one I have is A Midsummer Night's Dream, and this is by William Shakespeare. I loved this play so very much. If you don't know where to start with Shakespeare and you want something that's maybe not as intimidating as some of the tragedies, I highly recommend starting with this because first of all, it was really short. But second of all, this was hilarious. This was so funny. I was laughing out loud the whole time. I don't know, I had like the best time ever. This is also kind of perfect for the summer Midsummer because it literally takes place in the summer. It's called A Midsummer Night's Dream. But I just thought it was really, really cute. So in this book, we are really following the lives of 4 people. We're following a bunch of people, but like the main characters are going to be Hermia, Demetrius, Helena, and then Lysander. So what's happening is Lysander and Demetrius are both madly in love with a girl named Hermia, but Hermia does not like Demetrius. She only likes Lysander. However, her father will not let her marry Lysander, and there's like no reason why, because Lysander is actually more wealthy, or as wealthy at least, as Demetrius, but like her dad is like, no, you know what, I would prefer Demetrius as a son-in-law. Sorry for you, my daughter, but like you have to marry the man that I want you to marry because like I want to be his best friend, which is weird. And then we've got Helena the whole time, who is madly in love with Demetrius. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Helena really got on my last nerve. I was like, girl, get yourself together. So what happens is these fairies get involved in these people's love lives. And I'm pretty sure they are actually trying to fix things because they feel bad for this Helena girl. However, they make everything worse. And everyone falls in love with people who they shouldn't be in love with, and it's hilarious, and I loved it. There is nothing more funny than watching like a lovesick love triangle turned square on its head. Like, it was really, really, really good. Highly recommend it. I don't really feel like I want to rate Shakespeare's plays because they're genius, and most people already know they're genius, but if I had to give it a rating, I'd say my enjoyment was like at a 4-star rating. It was really great. Highly recommend it. The next one here is one of my favorite books of the month. I feel like it is my favorite book, but I don't know, because there's another book that I read that was also a 5-star, and they're like battling it out head to head right now. But you know what? This is really surprising to me. This has become one of my all-time favorite books, and it is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. You guys, I am obsessed with this book. I am absolutely obsessed with this book. I didn't really annotate it, but like I was underlining so many of my favorite quotes. I don't know if you can see that. I'm absolutely obsessed with everything in this book. I thought it was so profound. I think it's incredibly ahead of its time. But you know, I'm really surprised that I like this because I've heard so many people say that Virginia Woolf was hard to understand because she writes in stream of consciousness. And I've never really read a stream of consciousness or stream of conscious type of writing, but I've heard about it. And the way I thought it was it's like run-on sentence after run-on sentence, and you don't know who's talking, and it all kind of blurs together. And that's kind of true, but it was so much easier to understand than I thought it was going to be. In fact, I feel like this was more understandable than like a lot of other books that are not even stream of conscious. So if you were intimidated at all by the writing style, like please don't be. It was so easy to read and it was so incredible. Okay, so this is following a woman named Clarissa Dalloway, and Clarissa is getting flowers for her party. Really what this is it takes place in the span of like 24 hours while she's getting ready for her party, but she's really reflecting on life and her life choices. She thinks about like her past flames. She thinks about the people who she used to love. She thinks about her relationship with her husband. There are so many really interesting and important observations about what it's like to be alive. There's this one particular quote where she is standing in the middle of New York City and there's all of these taxi cabs around her, and she says that it kind of feels like she's standing in an ocean. And it's just so incredible because you can read between the lines, and I think Clarissa is meditating a lot on like loneliness and what it means to be alive. She's so happy to be alive, but at the same time, she's questioning so many of her life choices. It's beautiful because we see all of her friendships and all of her past flames, and it's this culmination of this woman's life. And this is also directly in parallel to a man's life named Septimus. And Septimus is having kind of like the opposite. He's reflecting on his life, but it's making him more sad. He is struggling with a lot of really, really intense issues. He has PTSD from the war. I don't really want to give anything away, but he's reflecting also on his love life and some of the choices that he's made, and he's really, really sad. And this is a sad book. There is a lot that happens in this book. I thought it was very fast-paced, but also it felt like I was reading in the minds of people. What was really, really cool is it would go from Clarissa Dalloway's mind and her viewpoint straight to like her friend Peter's, and then we would go to Septimus, and it almost was was like all of them were connected by their thoughts because the text went seamlessly from person to person. I love it. I don't know if I'm selling you on this, but if you've never picked this up, I highly recommend it. It was a fast read, but there were so many beautiful quotes in this, and it was all about love and what's important in life. I just really liked it. I thought it was really, really beautiful. And now I want to read every single work that she has ever written, and I also want to read about 5,000 essays on the significance of Mrs. Dalloway because I really feel like there's a lot of symbolism in this book. And I just really liked it, okay? Okay, so those were all of the classics that I've read, so let's go ahead and go next to the middle grade and YA books that I've completed. So I'm combining these because I only have one middle grade, and the middle grade I have here is one that I'm actually currently working my way through as we speak. I'm on chapter 7. Oh God, I almost dropped it. I'm actually buddy reading this with Gavin, and I think both of us have kind of been like taking our time more with this book. I need to actually Voxer him about it in a little bit, but I'm really, really enjoying it a lot, and I think I'm going to finish it before the month is out. So The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James by Ashley Herring Blake is about a little girl named Sunny. Sunny has just received a new heart, and she is determined to really live life to the fullest now that she has a new heart. So she really wants to do amazing things. She really wants to kiss a boy, and she really wants a new best friend because her and her old best friend are like no longer friends. They've gotten into a little bit of a fight. I have actually just gotten to the point where she has met this really, really cool girl in the ocean, and she thinks that this girl is a mermaid. And I have to tell you that Ashley Herring Blake's writing is absolutely stunning. The observations that Sunny is making about life is so profound and so beautiful. I think this is going to be one of my favorite middle grades of all time, which is a really big statement to make, but I cannot put this book down. I started this later in the month, and I wish that I had started it earlier because I know I would have flown through it, but I do think that I will be finishing this either today or tomorrow because it's just so beautiful. Okay, now on to YA. Now these three I have completed. The first one is House of Hollow, and this is by Krystal Sutherland. I actually read this along with The Female of the Species and A Darker Shade of Magic for a reading vlog. I was reading Sabine's favorite books, and this is actually one that we decided to buddy read together. But if you're interested in that vlog, I will link it like up above somewhere and then probably down below too. So House of Hollow is my kind of okay? We are following our main protagonist, Iris, and Iris has this very interesting history. So Iris has two older sisters. We've got Gray, who is the oldest, Vivi, who is the middle child, and then Iris, who is the baby. And when they were all little kids, they all mysteriously disappeared in the middle of Edinburgh in broad daylight. And no one can really explain why. One day they just pop back mysteriously. But when they come back, their hair actually changes colors, and so do the colors of their eyes. And there are all of these different reports and movies and documentaries written on these three sisters who have become inhumanly beautiful. So it kind of feels a little bit like a dark fairy tale, but that's kind of where things start to get twisted. Because as a teenager, Iris finds out that her older sister Gray has gone missing, and she and Vivi are trying to figure out what happened to Gray, but also what happened to them as kids. It's like this fast-paced mystery, but you've got that fantastical element in here. And then Krystal Sutherland throws in quite a bit of horror, and it just becomes like a really, really fun read. I really enjoyed this. I loved the ending. I feel like the ending is probably my very favorite part of this entire book. I loved the world. I loved the characters. I just loved how weird this was. I'm like a really big fan of weird, twisted things in books. So I would probably give this book a 4.5 star. I don't think it was like necessarily an all-time favorite book. However, I do think it was better than like most YA books that I read. I loved it. I just loved it so much. It had the right amount of like horror and weird stuff. Also, I felt like it was really fast paced, and I loved the sibling dynamics in here as well. So highly recommend House of Hollow. The next book I also gave a 4.5 stars to, and that was The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. I am so glad that I read this for that vlog because this is one of the best YA books that I've ever read in my entire life. So The Female of the Species is a very serious contemporary. It's really dark, and it actually reads sort of like a thriller, even though it's not a thriller. It's just really, really, really fast paced. This is really cool because we are following a bunch of different perspectives, but one of them is Alex Alex's perspective, and Alex has decided to take matters into her own hands and seek revenge against the person who has wronged her sister, but also against anyone who is wronging women in any shape and form. I feel like most of us, we can empathize with Alex. She's just lost her big sister to this huge tragedy, and it's just so fun to read from her perspective because it feels so dangerous and you feel like everything is incredibly unpredictable. But the really cool thing about this too is that we are seeing different perspectives. One is a boy named Jake, one is a girl named PK, and Alex also ends up kind of falling in love in this book, and that kind of throws a wrench into things, and it's so fun. It's like fun to see her interactions with PK, it's really fun to see her interactions with Jake. I feel like this has a lot of really important messages about rape culture that a lot of people should read about today, but also I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was fast-paced and really, really interesting. I did dock a little bit because I didn't love the ending. However, I think most people love the ending, so you should definitely pick this one up if you are in the mood for a fast-paced YA contemporary with a great message. And then the final YA I have here is actually Cool for the Summer by Dahlia Adler. So this book is following Larissa, and we're actually following Larissa from two different viewpoints, one from the beginning of summer and one at the beginning of school, like after summer has commenced. And Larissa has had this huge crush on this guy for basically her entire life. When he starts to pay attention to her, she thinks that everything is going her way until she sees the girl who she had a summer fling with pop up and start to go to her high school. And it kind of throws a wrench in everything because she has to try to figure out her feelings. I thought that a lot of things in this book were really handled well. I absolutely loved the relationship. I loved the love triangle. I thought that jumping back and forth between the different perspectives was really cool. There's a lot of pining in this, there's a lot of tension in this, and the whole time you start to root for certain people to get together, and I just really enjoyed it a lot. I would say that this isn't totally perfect. I didn't always love the dialogue, but I feel like that's something that's really hard to nail in a book in general. And then also I feel like sometimes the character descriptions got a little repetitive. One of the examples is there is a girl who is Larissa's best friend named Samantha. Every single time Samantha was introduced, we were told as the audience that she was a spoiled, beautiful girl who always got her way. And I kind of feel like you only had to say that once or maybe twice, but every time Samantha was introduced, we heard the exact same description. I didn't always love that. However, I stand by the fact that this was an incredibly fast-paced book. I thought the romance was really cute, and I really enjoyed it. So I give this a 4-star, and I, again, highly recommend. Also, just a little bit of a side note on star ratings. Number 1, I am a very easy to please reader. So most of these books, except for I think one book, they've all been like 4 or 5 stars. And then the second thing is I feel like star ratings aren't always reliable because sometimes I will read a book and I'll say, oh, that was a 4-star. And then like several months later, I can't stop thinking about the book. And then I'm like, actually, I feel like that was a 5-star. And then sometimes I want to give a book a 5-star because objectively it was written beautifully, but I didn't enjoy it. And then other books I really enjoyed, but I don't think that the writing was very good. So do I give them both 5 stars? It's a big mess. So yeah, the star ratings are there more as like a general guidance, but like I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. So having said all that, let's go ahead and move on to the last section, which will be the adult books. Okie dokie. So let's go ahead and start with the only adult book that I didn't finish, but that I have started, and that is Shipped by Angie Hockman. Hockman, I can never say her last name. Now I'm technically only on page 55. So this was the buddy read that I was reading with my friend Allie, and this is like a hate to love, enemies to lovers, office romance kind of a deal, except with a twist because they're on a boat. So this is following 2 people. We've got Henley and then we've got Graham. They are both competing for kind of like this really big marketing promotion in their marketing firm. The way their boss is determining who is going to get this big promotion is basically who can have the best proposal on their new cruise line. And so they both are sent on this cruise together. And as you can tell, things are gonna get steamy, okay? They're gonna be rocking the boat. Can I say that? So far, I'm really enjoying the vibe. There's definitely a lot of tension, and to be honest, I kind of hate Graham, so we'll see if that turns around. Next up is another book that I have read for Reading Like Sabine's Book Nook, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is an adult fantasy series. There are 2 other ones in this trilogy, and I do intend on reading the other 2. I feel like listening to the audiobook kind of tainted my experience because I didn't enjoy reading this book as much as I thought. I was listening to the book though. I didn't really read this physically at all, and I was listening to it while I was actually doing my bookshelf organization. I don't know if you've noticed, but everything is color coordinated behind me. I just didn't really enjoy like the narrator's voices or anything. I haven't even told you what this is about. So this is about Kel, and Kel can go to different dimensions. I think there's 3 other Londons, technically 4, but there's 3 other Londons. He actually goes to all the different Londons and he smuggles goods. But along the way, he finds an artifact that he really shouldn't be smuggling. It leads to this whole big chase. He also meets a girl named Lila Bard, who is a thief, and she's very feisty. She would remind a lot of people, I think, of like Arya Stark, and we're just kind of following their journey. There's a lot of things that I liked about this book. First of all, the concept of all of these different Londons and traveling in between, 10 out of 10. Like that is like a 5-star in itself. Victoria Schwab is an absolute genius. I also feel like the pacing of this was really, really fast. They were always on the go. There was always somebody to chase down or somebody chasing them or some mysterious thing to uncover. And so this is really a book for people who love fast-paced plots. I think most people will really enjoy this book because of that. However, for some reason, I just never connected to the story. You know, I don't have to. Not every story is for every reader, but I feel like if I was going to try to pinpoint why I didn't connect to the story, I think it was because I didn't really understand the characters. The main focus of this was the plot and not the characters, and I think I'm more interested in like character-driven stories, even when it's like in a fantasy setting. And because Kel and Lila were just always constantly fighting someone, I never really felt like I got to know them. It kind of felt like instead of going on a nice romantic date with someone where we have a picnic and I get to know all of your favorite things, it was like a speed date. That's like the worst analogy I've ever used in my entire life. But honestly, I just didn't feel like I connected to the characters. So I think if you are looking for an adult fantasy that's highly original, I think you're gonna like this. But for some reason, I just didn't connect. And I don't know if it was because it was more plot focused and I didn't really get to know the characters, or if it was because the narrator, I didn't like the way he was portraying the characters, and so I tuned a lot of it out. I do plan on continuing on in the series physically. I did, however, like Victoria Schwab's other 2 series that I've read, or other 2 books. I've read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I really loved that one. And then I also loved her middle grade series. I gave that entire series like a 5-star. So I do highly recommend her, but I just didn't really connect to this book. I think overall, the writing, the plot, the originality was like a 5-star, but my personal enjoyment was more like a 2-star. So I would say I would give this a 3-star overall, maybe like a 3.5. Okay, the next book that I read, I also read for a 24-hour-thon vlog, so I will link that somewhere if you are interested, and that is Klara and the Sun, and this is by Kazu Ishiguro. I really enjoyed this book a lot. This is following Klara, and Klara is an AI. Basically what that means is, it's kind of weird, but it's like she's a robot, and her entire mission is to help a child who she's assigned to as they grow up and become teenagers, basically. So it's kind of like she's a companion, but she's also like a helper. And they've made these IAs look like actual children themselves. So I was picturing like a life-size doll almost, which sounds so creepy if you think about it, but it didn't read like that at all. It actually felt really whimsical and it was beautiful. Klara is assigned a family and we're basically just seeing humanity through her eyes. This is exactly my kind of story because this is a very character-driven story. There's not a huge amount of plot that happens in here. This is more of like a reflection on humanity, on human emotions. Klara is trying to make sense of the complexities of what it means to be human. She's trying to help out her little girl, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. I really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it like a 4.5 stars. That is my review on Klara and the Sun. And then finally, we have my last book, which is the only other one that I gave 5 stars to aside from Mrs. Dalloway, and I think they're both kind of tied for my favorite book of the month, and that is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This book blew my freaking mind. I did not see the plot twist. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was so clever. I highly recommend this book. I mean, 5 out of 5 stars. One of the best thrillers I've ever read in my entire life. So in this novel, we are following Marina, and Marina is a group therapist. And one day she gets a call from her niece, Sophie, who is studying up in Cambridge University. And Sophie says that one of her best friends has just been murdered. And so Marina goes over there to make sure that her niece is okay. But then while she's there, her niece tells her that she thinks that her professor was the one who did it. And Marina is really, really good at understanding people and group dynamics because she's a group therapist. And so she decides to kind of stay on and try to figure out how this man did it. I did not see the ending. The plot twists are incredible. You will be so suspicious of so many people in here. There's so many weird things, but also one of the things that I loved about this was all of the Greek mythology influence in here. There's a lot of different Greek myths that are woven into the story. I was not expecting that at all. I love that. I love Greek mythology so much, and I just really, really enjoyed it. Also, I think this is kind of perfect for like a summer thriller as well, because while a lot of this does take place on the campus of Cambridge University, a lot of it also takes place in Greece, and it really made me want to go to Greece for the summer and just pretend that I was actually living in the movie Mamma Mia. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was perfect. Highly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars. Amazing. Okay, you guys, I think that is it for all of the books that I ended up reading in the month of June. So 10 in total, finishing 8. However, like I said, I still have like 3 days left of the month of June, so I do think that I will finish out with the full 10 books. Please let me know down below though what books that you have read this June. Actually, please tell me your favorite book that you have read this month. I would love to know. Also, once again, a huge thank you so much to Disney for sponsoring this video. Please go ahead and check out Cold Hearted if you are interested. All of the information will be linked down below. I think that's it for now, you guys. So until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!
Always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin takes me back to the time met you